Ooh, chile. Well, good morning, YouTube. It is 5:45 a.m. and it is the 18th of April, Tuesday. I'm sitting here with the pups, popping their heads up and down, and I'm giving them rubs. They deserve it. It's cold out this morning. Again, it was 43. Five things that Julie and I do on our property to rebuild, restore, rejuvenate, whatever you want to call it, soil. You know, we have a very, very high clay content soil, and in some parts of the yard, we have zero topsoil. It goes right into a clay hard pan. In other parts, we have an inch or two, and then there's some spots where we've got well over a foot. The water on our property moves in a very distinct route, well established, probably for eons, you know. And what it does is it comes in the southeast corner of our property and it crosses over to the southwest side. And then some of it turns north and comes down to the pond, well, up to the pond. The other portion keeps going west and it goes off onto the neighbor's property, but it eventually makes its way down through our hugelkultur beds first, then the pond, both ponds, because it drains. I'd say probably 75% of the water comes in through the first pond and then drains into the second pond. And then after that, it drains out and into the little creek bed that cuts through the rest of the way out of our property. So, you know, the pond slows it down. We also have the swales, which capture a whole different route of water and hold it up before it goes away. So we're working with what we got. I'm not trying to really reroute the water movement or anything. I'm just trying to make it work better. And the swales are a great example of that. You know, we were looking at a slope. Actually, we were looking at a slope like this, and the water is just sheeting off of it. And up here, we have no topsoil left because it's all down here. This is one of the areas where we have like a foot of topsoil down at the bottom and nothing at the top. So we put in the swales that go contour across the slope, and as the water runs down, it can no longer just sheet off. It pools up on the backside of those swales, and it's not until the swale is full that it starts to let its water out, and eventually it'll drain. Everything will drain through, but it's a much slower process. Gives the plants time to drink some of that water. It gives the water time to seep into the ground and into the aquifer. Excuse me, dogs. Hey, hey. Good Lord, I look over at she's got Puppy on the ground and she's holding her chest down with one paw, just standing on her like that. Gonna kill her, dog. Oh, I forgot where I'm even at. But yeah, so it slows it down and gives it time to work. Gives the plants time to drink it before it runs away. That's the effort with the way we harvest and farm the water, if you will. Someone gave that explanation or gave that analogy that it's like farming water, and it really is. But what I'm here to talk about, anyhow, is the five things that we do to manage our soil and rebuild it. This first one is something that's happening right now all across America, and that's your grass is growing And if you let it grow to its maturity, which is, you know, standard house grass, probably 18 inches or something like that, it'll go to seed, and those seeds will drop down and reseed your lawn. So that's what we're kind of doing on our property now. As different parts of the pasture mature, I come through and cut it after that. All the seeds have fallen, and that lays down a little bit of mulch for the seeds. And ideally, you'll get a good percentage of the seed crop to sprout. It's important, I think, to do it in the springtime because grass gets a jump start on the weeds. It's probably the only time of the year that the grass really has an advantage. Not true. It may continue to have the advantage if it continues to have greater density and greater amounts of grass in general. So we let it go to seed and then mow it down. It's going to help smother the weeds. It's going to help put more grass up there. It's going to help put more roots in the ground. The roots are going to open up the ground and allow water to get deeper. It'll allow dirt to get down in there to start the process of making soil. When you have a big high hay field and you cut it down to 6 inches, the roots die back, and that becomes, a composting material right in the ground. And everything that had been feeding through those becomes a nutrient supplier for the other grass that's around it. And that's just one example below ground, So we let the plants grow up. Same thing with the trees. Some of the species, you want them to grow so you can cut them back. And the reason why you do that is because when you take, I think it's like more than 30% of the tree's canopy, it kicks in, it signals to the roots to start putting out more. Oh no, excuse me, that's not it. It tells them to cut building roots and to cut back its roots so it can give its nutrient to the top part of the plant to rebuild. And when that happens, those roots are below the ground, they die off. They themselves become compost, and they leave voids and stuff for water to get into, and it makes it easier for roots to push through. A farm is a place of lots and lots and lots and lots of symbiotic relationships. Some things don't have it with each other, but they'll have it with third party, and that brings, that's how they're related. But so definitely let your plants grow up, and then prune them back and see the advantages you get. Just make sure you're pruning at the right time. Don't go pruning your apple trees in March, You'll be disappointed you did, I'll say that. Chop and drop. That goes well in hand with what we were talking about, cutting the grass down, for example. So the section I did yesterday was about 3 feet tall. I don't know what kind of grass it is, but it's gigantic. And when I mowed it, all its seed was falling off and flying all around and getting caught everywhere. But then I'm falling down the grass and it's laying right on top and mulching that seed material, protecting it from the birds, protecting it from the direct sunlight. So it kind of goes hand in hand with the seeding. You want to reseed the lawn, like I said. Let your plant go to seed and just chop it down. Be passive. Be Be willing to let nature do some of the work for you. Sometimes it's a longer process, and it may be a dirtier process, and it may be time consuming. But once you're there and you have that system established, it becomes less work, and it becomes more like just nature functioning, which is how you want it to be. Julie and I did a lot of weird stuff early on when we were young, and it was like we are trying to reinvent the wheel. And that's cute and clever, but you want the system to be as manageable as possible, free of components or anything. I mean, I want to be able to go out there with a rake, a shovel, and maybe a little saw and do what I need to do. I don't want to have a generator and power tools and everything else just to make some kind of crazy pump work. So think passively. Your yard waste, dump it in the worst part of your yard. We have a very barren spot where the horses used to ride in a riding pen. And for the first year, we just dumped grass clippings in there and leaf bags, and we would have fires in there. And one of my favorite things to do is throw a bunch of brush out, and then I just ride back and forth over it with the tractor, and it pulverizes it, and it becomes a cover of its own. And then you come back next summer, and it's all rotted and gone, and you're left with the beginning of some really nice soil. So, that's true of all the sticks and cuttings and things. Put them in a pile until the leaves and stuff all fall off and things start to break down. Little twigs will start to break down and become very brittle and dry quickly. And, you break that stuff up and you get it in with a little bit of dirt, it's going to start the process of making some phenomenal topsoil. So, seed. I got Bonesy. Oh, she's such a sweetie. Oh, you're such a sweetie. Yeah. Oh, and I got a brown town over on this side. I'm under attack. All right, everyone down. Seed with root crops. So this, you're not going to go seeding your front lawn with root crops to help the soil, but you may, in my case, we got this pasture that's just thrashed. Plant a bunch of root crops to break that soil up. Start getting bacteria down into that soil, good bacterias and good funguses that become the mechanics of making good soil. They're the critters and creatures and organisms that do the dirty work, so to speak. Earthworms, dirt and clay goes in the mouth, and it comes out as like tremendously good compost soil. It's marvelous. So root crops, carrots, turnips, daikon radishes, beets, anything that is going to grow in the ground and leave a void when you pull it out. And you don't have to harvest them. If you want to just grow them and let them die and then rot in place, that's fine too. I mean, they'll rot in place, they'll put their nutrients back in the ground, they'll still leave you a void where composting and water can get into. Or you can harvest them or it's a good crop and you harvest them for yourself. Or it's a small, mediocre crop and you harvest them for your animals. I mean, there's a lot of things you can do. But the idea is breaking apart the clay so the beginning process of making soil can start to happen. Burning brush in areas that are struggling. Now, you're not going to want to do this after you seed and you got delicate grasses and stuff. But maybe this might be one of the first things you do before you do anything else. And it's just a brush fire. Grab up as much brush you can from laying around the yard. You burn it while kind of raking it around so you get a lot of good coals and everything. And then you rake out the coals and let everything die down. And what you're left with is this huge area of potash and charcoal that are going to load up the ground with choice elements and choice minerals that it wants to, that the plants need. And if it was daylight, I'd take you out in the yard. I'd show you a spot. It's just super dark green. It's thicker. Whatever the potash and the charcoal are doing, the grass just loves it. And we'll do that in multiple places around an area and kind of work like multiple areas. So as they grow, they eventually intertwine and you got the whole pasture done. So we're doing multiple areas at once and it's working. I was trying to make a video up there yesterday and the wind was too much, but I noticed in the video when I was looking back at it that behind me, you could barely notice where the riding pen was. And for the first 2 years, it was so obvious. I mean, it was just, the first year it was just clay, so it was very obvious. The second year, it was like this really crabby grass, and and you could still see the former shape of the ring. And then this year, I noticed it's very, very faint, and I imagine once I mow that part of the pasture, I'm thinking you may not be able to even tell anymore, which is, in my opinion, is pretty impressive. Julie and I, that was a big goal, and we still got a long ways to go building soil, but just getting the grass to grow in those areas and stuff is a big achievement for us. So consider having brush fires. You can have little ones all over the yard if you want. You know, say you're working in the side yard and you got a bunch of wood debris over there, just burn it right there. Obviously check with your city and your ordinances and stuff in your town. But in the case where I'm at, I'm on a farm. We have certain responsibilities, and one of them is controlling our brush and stuff like that, and controlling the land and keeping it fire safe. So we get a little bit of leeway, like during the summer when people aren't supposed to be burning. You'll see farmers burning all over the place, but they're doing it smart. They're doing it on a rainy day or the next day after a heavy rain, or you know what I mean. But very, very beneficial, and I'll say another one that we do, and that's letting the animals feed on those places. So we would take a big lump of hay and throw it out in the middle, and the goats just stand around eating the hay, pooping all over the place, create a huge circle that's been rejuvenated with the poop, and then the hay, the scattered hay, straw. Both will help you build the grass up. And we don't let our goats out so much now that we have gardens, stuff going. But probably come fall, early winter, we'll do it again. And we still have grass. We mow up until late November, December time. The grass is still growing. So that's my sixth one, and I totally forgot about it. But what I've learned to realize is you just got to nudge Mother Nature in the direction. It shouldn't go as a surprise that we're pretty destructive as people in general. That riding pen is a great example. They simply could have moved the riding pen every couple months, and it's not hard to do. I would just hook up the ATV and pull the whole thing as like a big line of fences. So I know it's not hard. And then they could have had the riding area move around, and it would have actually benefited the ground more, because you graze for a little while and then you go to the next section. you know, and it gives the time for the grasses and stuff to heal, and the horse poop and stuff to break down some and rejuvenate the grass before you start grazing on it again. So we're in the business of farming soil and water right now. We and we enjoy it. We're learning a lot, and what we've already done this spring is pretty tremendous. It's more than what we've done in the 2 previous springs combined. And we're not done. Once I finish up the part of the barn up there, we're getting more chickens, meat birds. We got the 5 goats. Well, we got 7, but we believe 5 to be pregnant right now. So things are popping off pretty good here. And I really want to thank you guys for watching, especially if you made it this far. It it means a lot. It really does. I'll give you tell you something. I started making this video last week, and I kept getting interrupted when I would do it. I would either by the kids or Julia, or sometimes I'd go up to do it and the weather just wasn't right. Like yesterday, it was so windy, I couldn't. So I've literally tried to make this thing probably a dozen times, this video. And finally I just said, screw it, I'm going to sit down in the shop and just talk. But I will throw in a couple clips of what the pasture looks like behind me, because in the far behind me is the old riding circle and riding pen area. And I notice the little bit of clay, but you folks may not. And I'm hoping that to you it just looks like a big lush pasture, because that means I'm accomplishing what I want to. So if you enjoyed it, please give me a thumbs up. As always, I appreciate you folks watching. So have a great day.